10 o'clock on November the 13th. We are recording today's meeting. I'm going to call the meeting of the Audit Committee to order. I'm going to ask for individuals when speaking to introduce themselves so we can follow the conversation and for note-taking purposes. I'll also note that we'll have roll call votes taken today after every action item. And with that, I'll start by asking for a roll call for attendance.
Claudio Gualtieri, Chair.
Here.
You, Grant Ritter. Caroline Zambetti on behalf of Commissioner Nancy Navarrete from DMS.
Here.
Thank you. Matthew Bruckman. And Thomas McNeil.
Here.
Thank you. We do have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. So this is Claudio again, and at this time I'll ask that the Access Health CT staff members that are present please introduce themselves along with our auditor from Whittlesey.
Good morning, all. James Michelle, Access Health Connecticut.
Gina Walsh, Director of Operations, Access Health CT.
Rebecca McClear, Director of Technical Operations and Analytics, Access Health CT.
Susan Rich-By, Director of Legal and Governmental Affairs, Access Health CT.
Tom Goldfuss, partner
at
at Whittlesey.
Good morning, everyone. This is Glenn Jurgen, Director of Human Resources, Access Health CT.
All right, this is Claudio again. I think that completes the introductions. The next item is our
Claudia. Grant Ritter. I'm on the call now.
Oh, okay. We will reflect you, Mr. Ritter, as in attendance. Then we can change that to showing that you're attended. Thank you. Next item then is for our public comment. I'm informed that we had received no notice in advance for public comment, so I don't believe there's any public comment at this time. I'll pause to confirm, and if not, we'll move to the next item.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we did not receive any public comments.
Perfect, thank you. Taking us to item C, which is a review and approval of our meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was on June 12th. Do I have a motion to approve the June 12th, 2025 regular meeting minutes?
Hi, this is Grant. I motion to approve.
That motion is made by Mr. Ritter. Thomas McNeil on second. Any discussion, need for clarification, edits, or corrections of the minutes? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a roll call vote to approve the meeting minutes.
Claudio Gualtieri.
Yes.
Grant Ritter.
Yes.
Caroline Zambetti.
Yes.
Matthew Bruckman.
Yes.
Thomas McNeil. Mr. Bruckman,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Bruckman just joined us too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. With that, the meeting minutes are approved. Thank you. Moving on to item number D. This is our audited financial statements and a review of the FY25 statements. For this, I'm going to turn to Susan Rich-By, our Director of Legal and Government Affairs, who's going to introduce Thomas Goldfuss to present the audited financial statements. Susan?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Access Health CT is required to engage an independent auditor to perform an annual independent financial and programmatic audit pursuant to ACA requirements, and the agency is also required to have an independent financial audit performed each year pursuant to state of Connecticut requirements as well. Whittlesey was engaged to perform these audits for FY25, and as you mentioned, Tom Goldfuss, who is a partner at Whittlesey, is here with us today to present the results of these two audits. I will turn it over to Tom. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. Again, my name is Tom Goldfuss from Whittlesey, and we'll try to keep this somewhat high level, but of course, any questions along the way or at the end, please feel free to ask them. I'm happy to go over anything that you wish. We'll move along on the slide so we can get right into it. The first one here is, the next page is our engagement team, and I think it's important that everyone have a copy of this throughout the year in case anything comes up and they want to discuss anything with us. Part of the standards require us to talk to folks on within governance as well as management to discuss the proposed audit scope, changes throughout the year. We ask questions such as Is there any illegal activities or fraud you're aware of or suspecting? And if there ever were, we would incorporate them into our audit plan. Happy to say none of that stuff ever comes up, but importantly, even if it's not in our audit cycle, we want to hear from you throughout the year if there's anything of your concern. I'll point that Jean Callan is a senior manager on the audit. She has extensive experience with everybody here. She had previously worked on the engagement for 6 years. When you initially started during the formation, helped design some of the audit procedures, as well as the programmatic audit. So she's on vacation, so hopefully she's enjoying some sunny, warm weather where she is. The next page is the audit objectives. So presumably everybody knows what we do in an audit, but I'll just touch on some of the more important items. The audit's conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, as well as government auditing standards. So it's a little bit more than a traditional audit. The government auditing standards focuses on internal control auditing for financial reporting, as well as compliance. All the standards require that we obtain reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance, whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement. The audit includes understanding the internal controls of Access Health in order for us to plan our audit to determine our procedures. We perform risk-based audit procedures, which focus on significant audit areas and transactions, which guide our testing. The lower risk areas are, we do limited work on. However, the higher risk areas, we do things such as confirmations, testing of details, analytical procedures, etc. Next slide is our results. So we are in the stage where drafts have been provided. I believe we finalize everything once there's approval and after we've met with everybody. We do anticipate that we'll be issuing a clean auditor's report. So what that's referred to as an unmodified audit report. So that's the highest level of assurance you're looking for from your independent auditor. The Yellow Book report or the Government Auditing Standards report will also be an unmodified report. So that means that we're not aware of any material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or any areas of non-compliance. We also issue a programmatic audit, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, over compliance, and that is also a clean report too. No findings were identified in that. There were no uncorrected misstatements as a result of the audit, which means that we're not aware of any errors that exist in the financial statements as presented. Next slide is these required communications, which I think is probably the most important thing that we communicate with this committee is this slide. So we've previously communicated to everybody our audit responsibilities, management's responsibilities, and what we're engaged to do. That was done in a 3-year engagement letter last year, and then also presented earlier in the year to you. There were no changes in the application of previous accounting policies. And what that means is the policies that you've had in the past, as far as how accounting is performed, were not changed this year. If policies were changed that resulted in a change in numbers, it's our responsibility to report to you what the impact of those changes were. There were new accounting policies during the year, GASB related. I think the slide says there was no new policies. And I guess maybe what that should say is no new significant policies were adopted, because that would be a required communication. But there were 2 new GASB statements this year that were issued, which we previously discussed with you. They did not have an impact on numbers, but they were more on the disclosure side. One was on compensated absences, and then another was on certain risk disclosures. So again, they weren't significant, but we made sure they were implemented in your financial statements this year. And then 2 upcoming standards, which are effective today for your June 30, 26 year end, which we'll talk about. But again, they won't lead to any changes in how accounting is performed and how numbers are recorded in your financial statements. I think I previously mentioned no unadjusted differences in the audit, no fraud or illegal activities, no material weaknesses identified, The next one here, there were no disagreements with management, which again is good. That's a testament to the working relationship we have with management, but also, they're doing a good job before we get in to do our audit. Our audit is done to make sure to, kind of attest that the numbers you see throughout the year are the numbers that are being reported to you at the end of the year in the audit. And again, I think all feedback I get is that your accounting team and management do a great job with the accounting. Finally, the last point here, the independence. In order for us to issue our reports, we need to be independent with respect to the organization under all standards, and we've met that independent standard. So no issues there. Can move on to the next page. The final piece of our required communications are regarding required supplementary information. That information consists of the management discussion and analysis, which comes before your financial statements. It's management's way of narrating to a reader some of the changes that happen year to year for Access Health, narrative information, historical financial information, as well as some other details. Our job, we do not issue our audit opinion on that information, but we do need to do work on that. We do read that information. We make sure that it agrees to the underlying accounting records, that it's consistent. We obviously review it for grammar, making sure that there's some factual information there as well. So while we don't issue an opinion on it, we do perform limited work to make sure it relates to the basic financial statements. Next slide is the areas we talked about earlier, where I mentioned we do a risk-based audit approach. It looks like some of the translation between when we sent it to how it is now, the formatting looks a little funny, but in any event, some of the higher risk or significant audit areas that we audit and things that we do, cash and cash equivalents, we confirm the amounts of cash and stiff accounts. We audit the account reconciliations. Those are primarily deposits in transit and outstanding checks, so we're auditing that. The accrued liabilities we start with looking at reconciliations, looking at accrued expenses by vendor. Importantly, we make sure that these are recorded in the proper period. So some of the work that we'll do is to look at subsequent activity. So we're looking at activity after June 30th, just to make sure items that were subsequently paid were properly accrued, or that they were not accrued, and that would make sense that they relate to the next fiscal period. The next area is marketplace assessments. We look at the assessments on a quarterly basis. We look at the management reconciliations, and then we sample invoices from various health insurers. We have templates that we use to determine proper sample sizes, and then we get the details to make sure that everything is in line with expectations. Similarly, on the expenses, we also do a sampling of disbursements made throughout the fiscal year to make sure that the expense amounts were properly approved, charged to the correct account, paid from the proper accounts, relate to the business purpose, and to make sure that the expenses are complete when we audit the year end. Finally, the audit procedures on the programmatic audit were performed. Again, we have a draft report out on that, but the compliance requirements are from the federal regulations, and we believe that you're in full compliance with that. One more slide on significant accounting estimates. Estimates are an integral part of the financial statements, so you're required to make estimates on certain areas. The two areas that have the most significant impact, which aren't significant overall to the organization, but these would be, as far as estimates go, the most significant ones. The subscription liability, also known as SPIDA or SPIDA, depending on who might be pronouncing it. It's an acronym. This is a more recent standard within the last few years, which is a liability of basically cloud services that you subscribe to, IT or services that you don't have physical assets on, but you have a right to use those. So there's some assumptions that go into that. They're not significant in terms of needing a lot of judgment, but there's some calculations that go into those numbers, and so it is an estimate. And then similarly, the lease liability, another liability is a more recent standard, maybe 6 or so years ago. The liability calculation of your leases is recorded on your balance sheet as well. So things like lease terms, renewal rates, option discount rates are all factored into that. And there's some judgment that needs to go into there to do the calculation. Both of these assumptions are made pretty much on day one when you implement this. So the real work becomes just making sure nothing's changed in these agreements and that the calculations are done properly. So while they're listed here, it doesn't mean that there's any issues. It just means we'll bring it to your attention some estimates. The next 2 pages are some financial statement highlights. These numbers should look familiar to you. They are pretty much the numbers that have been reported to you throughout the year. But some of the highlights include an increase in total assets for the year of about $11 million. The primary driver there is cash. That's the biggest item that's gone up year over year. On the liability side, they're up as well. Unearned revenue or prepaid revenue is up significantly, about $8.5 million year over year. So that's really why you're up on the cash position, and that's really just timing of when the payments come in. So payments were revenues coming in a little bit sooner. It's not recognizable as far as revenue for the year, but you do have the cash for the end of the year. And then total net position was just short of 35 million at the end of the year, which seems to be a healthy figure considering the size of the organization. On the next slide is on the revenues and expenses. Operating revenues are up slightly year over year, about $3.5 million. And operating expenses are down for the year. The biggest change in the operating expenses being down that sticks out here is the depreciation and amortization expense. Those items, if you're not aware, are not only capital assets, but also some of the subscription software that you have as well. So those have been pretty large expenses for you. As you know, there's been a lot of capital outlays for Access Health for a lot of the software that you use. So that's recognized over the life of the use of that software. So that's lower this year than it has been. Wages and benefits are up slightly this year, offset by consultant expense being down as well. And then about 1.3 million in interest income for a total net change in position of 2.5 million, which is an improvement from the prior year, which is a deficit of about 2.8 million. So within the last 2 years, relatively flat. So last year's decrease has kind of been almost offset by the increase this year. And again, the increase in cash this year wasn't a result of net income. It was a result of some assessment of some prepaid revenue coming in before year end. The next slide, which I'll end with, and then again, happy to answer any questions. The first 2 GASB accounting standards we talked about a little bit here earlier. The new ones going forward will require some work with management, and we're happy to do some education or provide resources too. The first one is known as GASB 103, the Financial Reporting Model Improvements, and that will, they say, enhance effectiveness of decision makers reading the financial statements. That will be done through the management discussion and analysis page. So there's some more requirements to add to the MD&A. One of the bigger changes is going to be budget to actual reporting in that document. And then the last one here, or the second new one upcoming, is disclosure of certain capital assets. My assumption is that not every organization is consistent in how they report capital assets, so this should streamline things or at least make things consistent from organizations that report under GASB. This won't require any changes to how accounting's done, rather the reporting on capital assets, which include the physical assets as well as the right to use assets as well. You do a good job breaking out this information already. I haven't seen examples of what it will look like, or at least not that I can recall, but I imagine that you're already breaking out this information the way that they would expect you to break it out. So I don't think there would be a significant change. Perhaps the template or the footnote might look a might have some changes to it, but I believe the information you already disclosed meets what the standard is asking you to do. So again, these are effective now, and they'll be implemented for your next audit for June 30, 26.
Mr. Chairman, you remember this past summer, we had the interns did this project for us where they went through the entire organization to they did a study, a review, listed out all the assets we own, all the equipment we own. So this is going to come in very handy for next year's reporting.
That's terrific. Good use of the interns and great way to get ahead of some of these new requirements. That's great. Thomas, I think that concluded your presentation, so I'll pause to see if members of the board of the audit committee have any questions. Any questions of Thomas? Thank you for your very thorough and excellent presentation, and congratulations to the leadership team at Access Health, obviously continuing to demonstrate a culture of ethics and transparency that's important and validated by your report to the audit committee this morning, so thank you.
I agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, I'll now entertain a motion to approve the FY 2025 Access Health CT audited financial statements as presented. Do I have a motion?
Tom McNeil, so moved.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a
Yeah,
second?
Grant Ritter seconded.
Thank you, Grant. A motion is moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote on approval.
Gualtieri,
Yes?
Grant Ritter,
Yes.
Carleen Zambetti,
Yes.
Matthew Brockman, and Thomas McNeil.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Looks like that the motion has been approved. So that brings us to the next item, which is the programmatic audit for 2025. I'm going to keep it right with Thomas, who's going to present the 2025 programmatic audit, and then we'll take any questions and then proceed for acting on approval. Go ahead, Thomas.
Right. Do you have a copy? So it was included in our previous presentation, but do you have a copy of it that you want to share here?
Mr. Goldfuss, this is the presentation. So all documents were distributed via email 2 days ago.
Okay. So the programmatic was there are several testing requirements that we do. There were no identified areas of noncompliance. I think I previously mentioned that in the previous presentation, which included both. It's a requirement that you undergo this annually, and I guess I'll entertain any questions that anyone has. I know you have seen copies of it. There were no new areas to test, and like I said, nothing came up to report it. It's one of those things where it refers to the independent audit, which was unmodified, and if we were aware of any internal control issues or anything at the organization level, we report that. But the report we issue says that you are in material compliance with all of those federal standards.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. And I know that some of this was alluded to in the earlier presentation, so appreciate you sort of closing the loop and rounding it out.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Any other questions, further questions from committee members? If not, I'm going to request a motion to approve the FY 2025 programmatic audit as also presented today. Do I have such motion?
I will make a motion to approve the programmatic audit.
Thank you, Carleen.
Carleen Zambetti, sorry.
And Thomas, is that you or?
Yes.
Great, thank you, Thomas.
Yes,
motion is approved, is made by Carleen and seconded by Thomas. So we can, if there's no discussion, we can proceed to a roll call vote on approval.
Gualtieri,
Yes?
Grant Ritter,
Yes.
Carleen Zambetti,
Yes.
Matthew Brockman,
Yes.
and Thomas McNeil.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. That brings us to the next item, which is our CMS state-based market annual reporting tool, or the SMART tool. For this, we're going to turn to Susan Rich-Bai, who's going to provide an update on our annual reporting tool and take any questions before we proceed to a motion for adjournment after that. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you very much. So our last item for today is our state-based marketplace annual reporting tool, also known as the SMART. This is another requirement under our ACA requirements for Access Health to complete as a state exchange. And CMS has created the SMART to put all of the different accounting activities that Access Health and the other state exchanges are required to do into one simple report, and to file that annually with HHS on all of our activities. So we completed our SMART on May 30th, 2025 for, this is done on a plan year instead of a fiscal year like these other audits, for plan year 2024. And the components in the SMART are eligibility and enrollment policy, a report by the state exchange on its ability to collect and submit standardized performance monitoring data related to all QHPs, and our APTC CSR eligibility determinations, enrollments, disenrollments, and special enrollment periods, the financial and programmatic audits, which we just heard about, program integrity, and then finally it includes an attestation of completion. So this year, CMS is a bit behind their normal schedule. Usually they get the SMART final letters out in September, but because of the federal government shutdown, they're a little bit behind, and they anticipate that they should be coming out in the next few weeks. We do not anticipate any findings from the SMART. Everything was fine with all of the data that we submitted. So we will let you know when we hear back from them on the SMART. But that is all I have. So if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Susan. I'll pause to see if any committee members have questions. Seeing none, I think we are ready to adjourn. So thank you for a very productive meeting this morning. We got through all of our requested items and a very strong audit report, so appreciate that. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Tom
Motion to
McNeil.
adjourn.
I heard Thomas for the adjournment, but I think Carlene, will you be the second?
Sure.
All right, sounds good. Moved and seconded. Do you want a roll call, Martian?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Claudio Galtieri,
Yes.
Grant Ritter,
Yes.
Carlene Zambetti,
Yes.
Matthew Brockman,
Yes.
and Thomas McNeil.
Yes.
Thank you.
We are adjourned, 10:28. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.